Evening and welcome to the Pmbc meeting for July 10th, 2024. The first order of business is the warrant. We do not have one. Next order of business is to approve the minutes of 6/26. I have not seen them. Bob, have you seen them?
No, I haven't.
So we'll defer that to the next meeting. Shaker Lane feasibility study. Stacy's not with us, but I do know that the Shaker Lane subcommittee for site selection and whatever it's called met today, and I don't have an update on that. And the next committee meeting is scheduled for the 17th. So I know that we're moving ahead with the requirements of the MSBA, which is a very prescriptive marathon of activities. So moving on to the Littleton High School roof update. I know we're in the closeout. I think we've received the final documentation from the roofing contractor, and I'm working with Michelle on the billing for that as well. So we'll go down to the senior center. Brian.
Thanks, Steve. Like I said, we do not have a invoice packet to provide today due to just the holiday and not being able to get the invoices on time. So we'll have that for the warrant in 2 weeks. I did send out our monthly report. If there are any questions for that, just to give a brief overview, and then I figured I would give some updated pictures from today because a lot of those that are on the call right now had attended the topping off ceremony, and a lot of those pictures take place prior to that. So there's a lot of steel going on throughout the month of June. In our monthly report, we have spent about 30% of our budget to date, just over $5 million. We've made commitments of about just over $17 million. Our total project budget is still at 18.6. For our next meeting as well, we had a change order review meeting today. Bob was in attendance as well. There really isn't much to address at this point. We're going to vet out a few others, some coordination and some possible change orders that we'd want to get the feedback from the committee on.
So I think Bartlett was in that meeting also, wasn't he?
Bartlett was there as well. That's right.
I was, yeah.
And just as a side note, if there are other members of the PMBC that want to attend, that it's open to all. We do have a link that people can join.
Yeah.
A lot of room at the table too if people want to come in. It was a little hot today, but
and it's air conditioned.
Yeah. It was better than King Street. When we get to that project, I'll talk about King Street. It was 100 degrees there. So what I'll do is I will if I could just share my screen, and I will just something that I wanted to bring the attention to the PMBC because they voted, and this is kind of the fruits of their labor. This is the standing mock-up that is begun construction on the side of the building. The first order of business was getting the sheathing and window and the flashing installed. And now the mason is kind of giving some options on what the stone base around the perimeter of the building is going to look like.
So Brian, we kind of talked about this prior to the meeting starting. So that stonework will terminate below the sill of the window, correct?
Correct.
Because I'm not sure that I understand that from this photo.
So it's what I believe, as I didn't review it with the mason himself, but these are two different options on what the stones may look like around the band, around the perimeter of the building. One's on top of the other, showing the through wall flashing through it. There's also discussions on whether there'll be a top cap that will sit on top that the flashing will go over. So I think this is more for the joint spacing and the size of the rock and the depth that it will be behind in front of the insulation. And once a decision is made on that, then they will proceed with the other parts of this mock-up. And I do have Mike here with me. I don't know.
So it appears to me that if there are two bands there, one is a lighter grout and one's a darker grout.
Correct.
The darker grout is just fresher. So that's the only difference, is the one on the bottom was installed yesterday and the one on the top was installed today. So the grouts will actually be the same color.
Okay.
It's just showing the different, the kind of top half of that is stones that are 3 to 5 inches thick. So they're kind of more rough cut. And then the bottom is 1.5 inch milled of the same stone, just down to 1.5 inch thick with block behind it. So it's just different kind of ways to do it. So waiting for architectural input on that and review.
So difference in the texture. Yeah.
Yep. And then the cavity behind it and how the flapping sits on top is kind of the other decision.
Sorry.
So who from the committee is going to make a decision on that?
So ultimately, a lot of the mock-up is going to be on constructability, and which will be reviewed by the architect. If there is an aesthetic choice that needs to be made, we will note that and have Doug and Mike and Matt in the field make sure that it's noted and brought to the committee so that something can be made.
Is there any difference in cost?
If there are differences in cost, we want to know that before that we're bringing anything. With what you're seeing here, there is no difference in cost.
I asked that question, Brian, and they said, no, there's no difference in the cost.
Correct.
Okay.
Mike, if you want to just point me in the direction, if there's anything that you wanted to touch base on, I know it's mainly been steel for the past few weeks, but if there's anything that you wanted to share, here's a kind of a good picture of the overall mock-up prior to the masonry that was going in. So you can see the soffit and the eave and how that's going to be tied in, and it gives a good sense on how the constructability is going to work. We did talk about at the meeting today that we're going to kind of create a log along with our daily reports that's really chronicling when things get approved so that we can access that going back in the event that there's any type of errors in installation, that we can go back to the approval process and mock-up. Mike, do you want to speak to this? And maybe the upcoming schedule, just the rough dates on what we have coming up right now, just for the committee?
Yep. So this picture kind of just shows the metal decking, and then also, as you see, space throughout there, those bolts, those are the shear studs, which were actually just inspected today. So by our third-party testing agent. So we're waiting for a report on that, but from in the field, they said it looks pretty good. No real comments on that. And that's the decking there for the second floor slab on deck, which will actually, we've had a little schedule improvement with the slab on deck placement. It was originally targeted for the 2nd of August, and now we're targeting July 19th for that placement. So we'll get rebar supposed to be showing up, I think, early next week, and then we'll get that inspected, and then the concrete placed with testing and inspections on that. And then after that, it'll be mostly rough MEPs will start. So the electrician will start start next week, actually, early next week, and it'll be putting up the temp lighting throughout the building, which will be nice for us and maybe not so nice for the abutters, but yeah, so they'll be stringing up lights throughout that whole area as per code.
Yeah, it's a great point, Mike. So to the committee also, we were drafting a letter. We've done that on large milestones throughout the project to blast out to the staff and the residents just kind of keeping them informed on what's coming up with the schedule. And of course, one of those things is going to be that the electrician is stringing up the temporary lighting that's required throughout the building. So there is going to be some time here in the summer while we're working on the exterior envelope of the building that we're going to have a lit up building that you will be able to see. So we want to make sure that we're informing people before receiving any complaints, albeit even, try to do our best to inform people of what's coming.
So have you received any complaints to date?
Regarding what?
Anything?
We've had a few neighbors ask about trucks coming down the road. We had a one wheel went into the very corner of the property at the end of the street. So we had that repaired and raked out and reseeded. But not really. I've received probably 2 calls throughout the entire project, just mainly asking a few questions. If there was a car on the street, whether somebody was parking there, or if it was a drop off. So complaints have been really down to a minimum, and kudos to Mike too, notifying people about any water shut offs or when we were going to be getting deliveries.
Great, thanks.
Yep. So any other questions? I think by knock on wood that at our next meeting, the slab on deck will be poured at that point. They'll be coring through the penetrations for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing penetrations up onto the second floor. And they'll start shooting in their track for around the perimeter of the building to get the metal studs up. So
I did forget to mention they've already laid out for studs on the first floor, so that one's complete, or for 90% complete. So they'll get jumping on that right after the slab, which would be good.
Right.
Brian, is there any way of shading some of those lights that are going to be in that building?
Good question. I talked with Al about that, about the possibility of, maybe putting some sort of a barrier. We don't want to wrap the building and defeat the purpose of what the temp lighting really needs and for the protection around there. But if there's something maybe up at the construction house that we can put up as kind of a temporary barrier, if there are complaints of certain houses, we'll work with that to try to.
Yeah, we just have to be aware of it because we had the problem with that one light in the parking lot there that was shining back.
Right.
But that was shining on the house that they're occupying.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Good. From a financial standpoint, we'll have a full review next meeting as well with PCO log, anything we're recommending, and the status and health of our contingencies on both sides and any potential credits that we have coming back. But nothing to report. We're still at the same threshold that we're at right now, which is at we are at 0.6% of the contract and change orders. So we are trending in a good positive direction right now.
Cool. Any other questions on senior center? So we'll move over to Indian Hill. So Brian and Matt.
Yep. Today we've been fortunate to get all of our meetings in Littleton on Wednesday. So our mornings are taken up down at Indian Hill School, and then we make our way up to the senior center. And Matt, I'll let you kind of take on some of the stuff that we've done, but from an administrative standpoint, we have the Board of Health to check off is the last checkbox that we had for our building permit. We've been kind of pushing to get that over the line, and that should be issued. We're hoping by the end of the week. Classic has roughly, we'll call it soft mobilized onto the site, has done some exploratory work, exposed some beams and columns, so that engineers and consultants can come in, confirm their design, or add or modify their design as needed. We did an exterior walk around to identify any spots of rot on the siding that isn't called for, so that we can be prepared for any type of square footage addition that we need. and in talking with the contractor, they would be looking to do the outside as quick as possible, inclusive of the roof and the skylights and the exterior siding and painting and trim.
So do we have a schedule for that yet?
We do. We have a draft schedule that also satisfied our builder's risk policy. He's still waiting on a few trades to get them their official schedule, but he has provided me a draft which is in line with what the contract was for the duration. We will be looking, we're still waiting on schedule of values as well, so that's why you don't see a requisition here as well.
Oh, no.
Matt, sorry, I didn't want to step on you, but if you wanted to give a couple updates about from today.
Sure. Yeah. One thing to build on what you were just talking about there on the exterior of the building, we've been getting great assistance from the DPW, who has indicated that they're willing to step in to assist us in clearing back some of the weeds and vegetation away from the face of the building to enable Classic to get there and do their work on the siding, the repair work, as Brian mentioned, the trim work. And painting on the building, as well as gutters. So just in terms of physical progress, as Brian mentioned, there's been exploratory and enabling work. So looking over, and I can share a few photos from some of our initial walkthroughs if folks would like, or can I? Let's see here. Can I share screen? So just briefly go through some of the items here. We have this was from a meeting back on the 13th, where we did a walkthrough, discussed technology, security with the school department, with Parks and Rec, and with Nancy. Glenn Cross was just looking at some of the things that needed to happen in advance of anything getting opened up. So that was certainly helpful. There's a variety of things that were looked at as far as the existing conditions. This is some of the early exploratory work that Brian mentioned, where they gone in and tried to understand some of the existing conditions a little bit better, looking at some of the columns, footings, and just begun to just open things up with the blessing of the building commissioner, I would add. So they're trying to get as much of a head start as they can before they're able to kick it into high gear once they do get their permit.
Yeah, Mike, I think one real quick back to that one picture, if you guys can see that gentleman kneeling into that hole, that is actually about a 1 foot by 8 inch by 8 foot piece of granite that's been used as the structural post down in the basement. And what is owned per contract is those are being removed. We'll be speaking with the town if there's any use for that. We're not even sure right now. The contractor's not sure how they're going to get out of the building. But new structural footings and pads and columns are going to be going in to shore up the basement that leads up to the first floor.
Mm-hmm. The structural engineer was very keen to understand the condition here because that will help them to design something that is appropriate for the new condition and the new configuration down in that space. So then we get into, again, sort of taking things open, cutting out pieces of the floor. I think this next one will show that a little bit better, sort of removing pieces of things to understand how the structure goes together, what some of the conditions are that weren't immediately apparent from the outside, as far as behind the sheetrock, and looking at how things are framed. And then moving forward, one last one. These are some photos from the end of June when we walked around last time to look at some of the conditions of the exterior trim and some areas that are going to need to be repaired as part of the exterior work that Classic is looking to get started on as soon as possible.
Yeah, looks like my house.
This one in the middle actually was something that we talked about today, and Classic has a recommendation to take a trim piece, if you can see my cursor here, that would sort of complete this condition along here with a new board and I think correct the flashing detail in the process. So again, we've just been identifying a number of things that we can get them to start on as soon as possible. As far as I think that's all I have in terms of pictures here, so I'll stop the share here. But as far as the administrative side, I'll just add that the submittals and the RFI process is ongoing, and a number of things are started in draft form until we get the schedule of values. That isn't able to really sort of kick into full gear, but Classic is definitely trying to advance everything that they can. One of those items is the schedule of values. And one is a final version of that construction schedule that Brian indicated we have in draft format. So we're definitely looking to have a look at that, compare it to the draft, and evaluate what may have changed as it's come together.
Matt, is that wall being moved, or is that coming out of there completely?
It is being moved. That's
Matt, I understand that Nancy identified the Cat 5 cables have to be replaced with Cat 6.
Yes. And that scope is being, I think Brian may have touched on this, but that we're working to coordinate the execution of that scope between Bright Light Electrical, who's the filed sub-bid electrical contractor that Classic carried for the filed sub-electrical work, as well as Randy, who's the house doctor electrical contractor, has some scope in this as well, as does our security consultant, who is NSI Neshoba, who's also working at the senior center. You'll be familiar with them. So there are a number of folks who have at least some portion of the tel data security electrical scope. So we have a follow-up meeting that will be scheduled as soon as we get Neshoba's revised quote for their scope, just to again try to make sure everybody knows who's doing what there.
So that ties into the card access as well.
Exactly.
Correct. Yeah. So we've got three players there. We've got access control and security. We've got miscellaneous low voltage, and we have the filed sub-bid electrical contractor. And so we have a budget for all three, and it's just a matter of all this coordination, making sure we don't have any double coverage on anything, and making sure the scope is correct, and making sure that what we paid for by the contract, we're getting all of that before we kind of release these town vendors in order to do their work.
Perfect. Thanks.
Looks like we have a hand up.
Yeah, quick, Matt, Kirby Dolak here. Is there a display signage strategy similar to what we did for the library or the senior center? Because I'm hearing low voltage, but I'm also thinking about if they're doing displays in there and have a signage strategy. I'm thinking particularly about the rec park group in particular, wanting to show what schedules are on and things along that line. Can you enlighten me on that one, or isn't there a plan for that? Thank you.
Do you mean digital signage, Kirby?
Run that one by me again. I didn't hear you, sir.
I'm sorry. Do you mean like digital signage, like on a screen that's going to be running like some sort of a information that's needed from Parks and Rec and throughout the town? Yeah, we have locations for screens. I'll have to look at the our tech drawings on where those locations are, but we haven't purchased anything from a actual material yet. But I will. Let's follow up with Jessica, Matt, and find out where those locations are. And yeah, Kirby, maybe we can use your experience too about.
I'm thinking about Keycode Media, similar to what you're doing for the senior center, kind sir.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I didn't know whether it was budgeted, because I know this is a low budget program, so to speak. So I didn't want to introduce something that wasn't there.
No, understood. Yeah, we have some technology and low voltage budgets that we put into the overall project budget, as well as some small owner contingency. So let's get us an itemized idea of what we have. We'll get that to you.
No problem. Thank you.
Hey, Bartlett, I have a question for you. Are you with the British Beer Company?
Am I at it? No, I'm not. I'm
The background looks like it. Anyway, just
well, all the buildings in Maine look the same.
Oh, you're in Maine.
Yeah,
Okay. Good for you.
yes.
I got a question.
I think it got up to maybe 75 here today.
Oh, nice. Okay. That concludes my question.
I got a question for Matt.
Yep.
Matt, along the roof line there, are they gonna use, is that gonna be, wood that's being placed back on that? Are they gonna go with the plastic board or AZAC or whatever it is?
Yeah, they mentioned a product at our OAC meeting earlier today that is something that is similar to an AZEC. They're looking for something that's inert, weather and rot resistant, but that would be, once painted, would be, I think, hard to tell or hard to distinguish from wood.
Yeah,
That's
just
what
so
I'm
we don't
using
end
on
up with
my
the same
house.
problem.
And the such products are very once painting are very convincing at this
Yep.
point. They don't look fake. So we're eager to see the submittal on that.
I understand.
Good presentation. Anything else on the Indian Hill? Questions? We'll move over to the police station. A brief update from Brian.
Yeah, it's very brief. I've reached out to both principals on both sides. I'm going to start making some calls to owners of both projects, of both firms, both Sonotech and the waterproofing company to explain our problem. I've reached out to both of our reps and their bosses that's on this project. I've also spoken in-house at Vertex about what we're seeing right now. And our plan is to go through my pictures and the report that was generated prior to us even starting any work that Vertex did that the town asked them to do. So we have that set up now. My plan tomorrow is to reach out to some of the owners of these companies to explain what's going on and what our issue is. And start, like we said last week or a week and a half ago, about what their expert recommendation is, why this is happening to us, and why the fix that was presented to us is going to be fixing having rearing its ugly head again and getting moisture inside the building. So my opinion changed when I did a walkthrough with you guys. I thought we were going to just be very humid inside the building, and it really didn't seem to be
Right.
the reason. So more to come, and I'll make sure that I keep everyone involved informed, because I know the chief's going to be out for a little bit of time now.
Right. Okay. Member input, Bob.
I see that in the meetings, and Bartlett will see it as we go along, at the meetings for the senior center getting more and more interesting with the material that's being done and the information that we're getting. So that's basically all I got to say.
I think we're getting some feedback. Kind of understood about half of what you said, Bob. Did everyone else get it? Okay. Bartlett?
Yeah, I was in the job meeting today. I thought it was really good. I mean, the big issue seemed to be the gutters along the edge of the roof. The drawings show one thing, the roofing contractor showed something else. They're planning to have a meeting to get a Commodore and those two parties together to figure out what the right answer is. So seemed like a really good job meeting.
Yeah, I'll say, Bartlett, that if that's our big problem, then we're doing the projects are pretty good, doing pretty well right now. So I have full confidence we're going to get through this gutter issue. It's just kind of the sticking point today that we couldn't really figure out. So.
It was the issue of the meeting, but I mean that's a sign that there's not any serious problems. So
Yeah, Bartlett, if you can attend these meetings, it would be very helpful, I think.
well, I'll try. It's difficult to remember what's going on in the real world.
I know.
From Maine.
Your input is certainly valuable. I appreciate it. And I have no input at all. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
I'll unmute myself. Second.
and all in favor, Bob,
Rama, yes.
Bartlett,
Bartlett, yes.
Steve? Oh, yes, yes, I, I approve. And, that concludes the meeting for tonight. Thanks for everyone's participation, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.